Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering, as we've got a turn 1 Aether Vial being thrown out, and then Force of Will. A little bit of jumping around here. Alright, and we are back. Looks like a Tundra, Wasteland, targeting the Tundra, Brainstorm, and then a Mother of Runes. Mom actually going to be somewhat decent here against this Aluren build, as it relies pretty heavily on Oko, and Mom really brushes him off pretty effectively. We have a Thalia, which gets Force of Will pitching Oko. He is blue, if nothing else, enabling the Force of Will. And Thalia, it's kind of an interesting card in this matchup. At the end of the day, it's not nearly as good against Aluren, the combo, as it is against many other combos. However, it does make all of those 1-mana cantrips just hot garbage. If you're paying 2 mana for a Ponder, I mean, as printed, people literally wouldn't sleeve that magic card up. So it's a tough sell when all of your cheap card drawing and library manipulation ends up just being ineffective, or inefficient, I should say. Recruiter of the Guard goes and finds, not sure yet what that is. Maybe it's a Stoneforge Mystic. We'll see. Gilded Goose. And the Goose, a nice piece of acceleration for the combo. The food is pretty welcome, keeping you alive, buying some time. And then, of course, able to block 1-power creatures as well. Stoneforge Mystic, looks like that is the card here. Umezawa's Jite being found. And Jovan with a little bit of a test here to see if he'll jam that Jite, or no, he's actually got what looks like another Thalia. This Aluren list is able to win through a Thalia if they can land the Aluren. That'll be the big test, making it cost 5 mana significantly worse. Right now, a whole lot of planes here for Jovan. If he's able to get another piece of disruption, it could go a long way. And Phyrexian Revoker coming down. Gonna stop that Gilded Goose from making any more mana. Matt creates another piece of food, and we will see if that food ends up being relevant. Oh, is that not a Revoker? I may have misread the situation there. A little tougher with some of these setups to see precisely what's going on. I'm not actually sure if I can make my display bigger. I'll try and do that for the next one, give myself a little bit more of an advantage in being able to see what's going on, because I was under the impression that the Gilded Goose would not be operating. Stoneforge Mystic popping in a Batter Skull. End of turn, and this might be just too much here. The Recruiter of the Guard from Matt can be an important combo piece for Aluren. Also help you out by finding much needed cards to just keep you alive until your Aluren actually comes online. And that is going to be it. Yeah, that was pretty lopsided there. Aluren not doing what it needs to do for Matt, primarily showing up and resolving. In this matchup, not going to have any difficulty resolving it. But as far as actually getting to 5 mana, I mean, Death and Taxes has a lot to say about that. They've got Wasteland, Rishadan Port. They can go after your Gilded Goose with a variety of cards, Phyrexian Revoker, Swords to Plowshares, Umezawa's Jite, Palace Jailer. I mean, there's ways to go after the mana, and that's going to be Yovan's most likely path to victory in this matchup, is going to be preventing that Aluren from showing up. Because once it does, there's very little that he's going to be able to do to interact with the combo. Now that Matt has those Recruiter of the Guards in the deck, I believe he's on a build with Baron, which is going to look more like Recruiter of the Guard into another Recruiter, and then Baron to bounce a Recruiter, and then go get a Cavern Harpy. And from there, it is pretty difficult to interact with. You've got all of those different Recruiters, which can potentially be bounced. And now we've got a Flooded Strand and a turn 1 Aether Vial. Kind of the best case scenario for Yovan is going to be Aether Vial followed by a Stream of Mana Disruption. A Collector Oof, solid answer to Aether Vial, also going to stop any equipment from equipping, making Batterskull the only kind of relevant equipment as long as this Oof stays around. Stoneforge Mystic. Oh no, it's not a Stoneforge Mystic. We got a Thoughtseize here from Matt as I'm trying to figure out what this card is. Got a Palace Jailer, Aether Vial. Mom is ultimately chosen, as she does stop the whole Oko plan pretty dead in its tracks. Now that's a Stoneforge Mystic. Perhaps the first one's Thalia? I don't know. Umezawa's Jite. Not going to be ideal here with this Collector Oof. We'll see if Yovan drew Batterskull for turn, or if he's just very confident that this Oof is going to be out of the way, given some time. Looks like a Rishadan Port. However, end of turn, flashing an Icefang Coatl draws Matt another card. And that Rishadan Port actually going to be used to activate Stoneforge Mystic. Yovan giving Matt the mana and a Recruiter of the Guard. Grabbing a Gilded Goose. Giving him even more mana. Mother of Runes finally showing up. And the Batterskull does not... Well, it looks like it actually did swing Matt without Death Touch online. I'm a little surprised by that Gilded Goose. I would have imagined getting Icefang Coatl with the Recruiter of the Guard, just drawing another card, digging closer to try and find that Aluren. And another Recruiter of the Guard. Is this one grabbing Plague Engineer? I think it is. Plague Engineer. How bad is that going to be? I mean, pretty bad, right? Taking out humans, and that'd be Mom and Stoneforge Mystic. Palace Jailer coming down, taking out the Collector Oof. That unlocks the Aether Vial and potentially the Umezawa's Jite. Jovan making stuff very interesting here. Now, Matt does have an Icefang Coatl who can make him the Monarch. Right, I don't think there's any flying yet. Now perhaps he's going to get blown out by a Flicker Wisp, but I think you gotta try and make that happen. Plague Engineer comes down. Mom is going to give some protection before she leaves. Not likely to be super relevant here, as if an Oko is going to target the Batterskull, it would be targeting the Batterskull itself, not the Germ. Super important that you don't do that. You don't want to be turning the Germ into a 3/3. The Batterskull would still be on there. You would have just made a 7/7. That actually reminds me of a interaction I had a long time ago with another game store owner. Let's see here. We got a response of the Aether Vial. So when Icefang Coatl hits Matt, it'll trigger for Matt to become the Monarch. He will be able to use his Aether Vial in response, and then the Collector Oof will come back. Flicker Wisp has been grabbed. This game state might be a little too complicated for my story, as Oko also joins in the fray here, further complicating things. However, Matt has become the Monarch. And I feel like the way that his deck is built, he's going to be able to leverage that pretty well. I mean, this is a little bit more of a combo build than what he's been playing. But ultimately, still a mid-range deck. Happy to use Baleful Strix and Oko in their traditional roles. Flicker Wisps. Gonna trigger. And it looks like Jovan just gonna be going for some value here. But it's tough to outvalue somebody that's the Monarch, this Palace Jailer. Now coming down, becoming the Monarch again. And again hitting the Collector Oof. Alright. I'm picking up what you're putting down here. He's got the 3/1 to trade with the Icefang. Potentially the Mom can play defense with the Oko. We might be safe for story time here. So I was at another game store many years ago playing against a Merfolk deck with Stoneblade. And this was in the tournament that they were holding. And my opponent, who was the game store owner, it's like one of our first interactions going to his store and playing against him in his own tournament. He played with Mero Regery out a Merfolk to attempt to break on through with his Merfolk and win the game on the spot. And he said, tap your Batterskull with the trigger. And I asked him, do you value winning more or learning more? He thought about it for a second. He's like, I guess learning. To which I replied, your trigger resolves. I tapped my Batterskull. He attacked. I blocked with the Germ, who's still a 4/4 lifelink, holding a tapped Batterskull. Proceeded to gain life, not die to his Alpha Strike, and then on the next turn, just completely blew him out. And that is an important thing to remember in terms of what you're targeting. It probably doesn't happen as much in Paper Magic anymore because it's super friendly, but you can absolutely make the mistake of confusing the Batterskull with the Germ. And you want to make sure you get your interactions very precise in that regard. Certainly in something like Magic Online, you're not going to get any type of take-back. And this board state is just an absolute chaos. We've got Meddling Mage down. We've got an Oko. He can switch stuff around if need be. I mean, this is wild. Chump blocking beginning to happen. And Yovan's mana, pretty valuable here. I can't believe this Batterskull hasn't been turned into an elk, to be honest. Because again, the Mother of Runes can't defend the Batterskull. Euro looks like he's showing up, drawing a card. And he'll be able to come back out of that graveyard pretty soon. Now, he's perhaps at his weakest against Death and Taxes. They have a ton of ways of interacting with him, right down to the Karakas, which can bounce him as a legendary creature. And depending on the game state, I mean, you are drawing a card every time, which is potentially fine. But if you're actually trying to get him down and attack and block, I mean, it's a very different thing to be spending 3 mana every turn, or just having this massive threat that can just keep coming back from the graveyard if it dies during combat. Matt using Oko to make a 3/3. Gilded Goose plus Oko is a pretty powerful combo to have been in the same block like that. I mean, they do work out quite well. Getting a turn 2 Oko, super strong. And then just making a stream of 3/3s every turn after that. It's also pretty difficult to contend with for pretty much any fair deck. Luckily in Legacy, there are a lot of unfair decks. Though Death and Taxes is actually one of the fairest, if we're being honest. I mean, it really does play out like Magic was kind of pitched to you in the first place if you got into the game back in the early days. Is the whole idea of attacking and blocking with creatures and, summoning minions to do your bidding. It's a very kind of simpler Magic in some ways, but playing it incredibly precisely does require a real mastery of not only your deck, but an understanding of the format to be able to know precisely what the right plays are. You kind of need to know exactly what your opponent's doing, when it's correct to go after their mana. And finally, an Aluren showing up here for Matt. And this should do it. It looks like Yovan, the shields are down. So Recruiter of the Guard, getting bounced by Baron. Recruiter's going to grab Baleful Strix. I'm sorry, the Cavern Harpy. Senior moment there. Cavern Harpy is now going to make this all go away, and we are on to game number 3. So for those unfamiliar, once you have a Aluren out, Recruiter of the Guard is just lethal. So you're going to be able to go get Baron. Baron's going to be able to come down, bounce Recruiter of the Guard. Recruiter of the Guard then is going to be able to grab a Cavern Harpy. Cavern Harpy can then bounce Baron, which can bounce Recruiter of the Guard, which can go get your creature that you're going to use with your Cavern Harpy. Probably just going to use Euro at that point. And Euro, every time you play him, you can bounce him with Cavern Harpy to net 2 life and a card and a land drop, which is probably not needed at that point. You have no need for mana for your spells. Eventually, you'll draw into your Cauldron Familiar. You could also tutor up your Cauldron Familiar if you want. It's also totally fine. But typically, you're happy to draw your entire deck and get all of your Force of Wills and any other counter magic that you might have, just in case they've got something to stop that final interaction. Of course, you've got discard that you can fire off as well. Here we've got a turn 1 Mother of Runes and a turn 1 Tropical Island, enabling a Brainstorm in response to this Wasteland. A little bit of desperation in that play, and that Matt is going to draw the next card. It does likely mean that that Wasteland was very good and he's going to be a little light on mana. He's got a Misty Rainforest. We'll see how good the Brainstorm was if he drew into the lands that he needed. We got a Stoneforge Mystic landing, and these two moms are going to look to protect what probably needs to be a fairly quick win. We're coming up on over 42 minutes, it looks like, in this round. We're playing at double speed here, as we do. Makes these type of matchups much, much faster. Twice as fast, one might say. We've got a couple of snow basics here for Matt. And luckily no Rishadan ports yet. Icefang Coatl flashing in, drawing a card. And that guy's going to have a tough time trading with these Mother of Runes out. But I think Matt might actually be up to 4 Plague Engineers. We've talked a little bit about his list. Always happy to collaborate with people, give feedback on the different lists that they're working on, and I've actually enjoyed looking at Matt's lists and kind of brainstorming with him on occasion. I'm pretty pleased with the way some of my pitches played out for Eurekatel, and now he's trying essentially another A plus B combo. I think there's something to be said for kind of testing those all out in Legacy and seeing what the disadvantages and advantages are to... Well, this Stoneforge Mystic is actually doing some more work, getting a Sword of Fire and Ice. Yikes. This Germ is just living its best life, getting Voltroned together. Giving Pro Green smash in face. And let's see what the shock goes towards. Is it going to be to the dome, or is it going to take out one of these creatures? That seems to be the correct play there. Going after the creature, setting Matt back a mana. And at this point, I mean, you are still potentially dead to an Aluren if he's got the 4 mana here. He had 3 mana going into the turn. A land drop for turn would be super dangerous. But Jovan really going for the throat here with this aggressive Germ holding 2 pieces of equipment. But we've got the Aluren and the Icefang Coatl that draws a card. This is the danger zone. I mean, if he's got... Oh, and there's the Recruiter. So it looks like he's going to do it. Yeah, that is absolutely brutal. So Jovan may not have had any other options. It is instructive there to just see how dangerous it is to let Aluren get to that 4th mana. Anything you can do to stop that, you know, Wastelands, Rishadan ports, Revokers. It was probably, judging from what we've seen, kind of optimal. Now, Jovan might have some interaction in terms of playing 3 mana cards, creatures from his hand, but he does not. He's scooping it up. That is a thing you got to look out for. But I think this Recruiter build probably just going to be more resilient to that now, and is just that shotgun win. So there we see Aluren doing what it kind of does at its best when you get that early Aluren and just ride it to victory. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.